Well, I met through his girlfriend back in 1999, and I'd known her since she was at university in the UK. And it would be, to some extent, a stretch to say that as it were, we were close friends. I mean, we were friends because of other people.
The palace gates have once again become the focus of the world's attention. Just 3 minutes ago, an official statement was quietly released by the royal family, one that has left both Britain and the global public in shock. After months of silence, speculation, and uncertainty, the truth about Prince Andrew's condition and his future within the monarchy has finally been revealed, and it's far more emotional than anyone could have imagined. Sources close to the family have described the atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace as somber but united as senior members of the royal family gathered privately before the announcement was made. The statement, brief yet deeply heartfelt, acknowledged a moment of profound change for the Duke of York, a man who has lived much of his life under the world's most relentless spotlight. For years, Prince Andrew has been the most private of the Queen's children, often stepping away from the grandeur of royal life to live quietly. But now it seems the challenges he's been facing have reached a point where silence is no longer possible. Tonight, we take a closer look at what really happened behind closed doors, the decision that shook the monarchy, the reaction from King Charles and Princess Anne, and how this heartbreaking update is shaping the legacy of a royal family already tested by time and loss. Because what the world just learned isn't just news, it's a human story about reflection, family, and the price of being royal. It was early morning in London when the quiet hum of activity began behind Buckingham Palace's iron gates. Royal staff, dressed in their traditional black suits, moved with a kind of solemn precision, the kind that only appears when something truly serious is unfolding. In the grand corridors of the palace, phones rang softly, hushed voices echoed faintly, and a sense of anticipation filled the air. Something significant was about to be revealed. At precisely 9 a.m., a small group of palace press officers entered the Royal Communications room. On the long mahogany table before them sat a single sheet of paper bearing the royal insignia, the official statement, that would soon reach the entire world. It was short, just 3 paragraphs long, but its words carried an unmistakable gravity. His Royal Highness the Duke of York, it began, has been facing ongoing personal health challenges and, with the full support of His Majesty the King, will be stepping back from all remaining public duties indefinitely. The silence that followed those words was deafening. For months, speculation had surrounded Prince Andrew's quiet absence from royal life. Some thought he had chosen to retire completely from the public eye. Others believed he was still struggling with the pressures that had shadowed him for years. But now, the palace had spoken. And for the first time in a long time, their tone was deeply human. Behind the scenes, the royal family had been preparing for this announcement for weeks. King Charles, ever mindful of public perception, insisted that the message be written not as a statement of duty, but as one of compassion. "This is not about reputation," he reportedly told advisers. "It's about family." Princess Anne and Prince Edward, known for their unwavering loyalty to their siblings, had both visited Windsor earlier in the week. "He's tired," Anne was overheard saying quietly to a staff member. "He just needs peace now." For the royal family, this moment wasn't about politics or protocol. It was about acknowledging the toll that years of public life had taken on one of their own. Though the palace didn't elaborate on the nature of Prince Andrew's health challenges, insiders described him as in need of rest, reflection, and privacy. It was the kind of statement that carried both dignity and sadness, a final confirmation that the Duke's days of official royal duty were truly over. Within minutes of the announcement, news outlets across the world picked up the story. Television anchors spoke with hushed voices. Online platforms flooded with reactions ranging from sympathy to reflection. But what struck most viewers wasn't the news itself. It was the tone of it. There was no defensiveness, no denial, no attempt to reshape history. Just a quiet, Respectful acknowledgement that the man once known for his military service, his charisma, and his public charm was stepping into a very different chapter of life. Back inside the palace, King Charles and Queen Camilla were said to have taken a private moment before the news was released. "We must protect the family's humanity," Charles told her, gazing out over the gardens. That's what Mother would have wanted. For decades, the late Queen Elizabeth II had guided her children through moments of crisis with grace and restraint. And though she was gone, her influence still lingered in every word of the palace's message, a reminder that even in times of change, the monarchy's greatest strength had always been its sense of duty and unity. As the morning sunlight broke through the palace windows, Prince Andrew remained at his residence in Windsor, far from the flashing cameras. Neighbors said the house was quiet. Only a few close staff members were seen coming and going, and while no official photos were released, one image captured by a passerby said it all. The Duke standing by a window, looking out across the grounds, his expression calm but distant. It was clear that a chapter had closed, not just for him, but for the royal family itself. The moment the official statement was released, King Charles III reportedly sat alone in his private study at Clarence House. In front of him lay a stack of papers, drafts, revisions, and the final version of the message that would reach millions. Though he had approved every word, the reality of what he had just announced weighed heavily on his heart. For the king, this wasn't just an act of leadership. It was an act of brotherhood, one that had no easy path. Those closest to the monarch say the past few months had been some of the most difficult of his reign. While he had been tasked with guiding the monarchy through modernization, family matters had tested him in deeply personal ways. The situation with Prince Andrew was one such trial, a painful reminder that behind the grandeur of the crown beats a human heart, full of conflict and compassion. According to palace insiders, the king's decision was made only after long conversations with his siblings. Princess Anne, known for her direct and practical nature, had encouraged a dignified and honest approach. "Charles," she said during one family discussion, "you can't carry both the crown and everyone's pain. Sometimes you have to set things down with love." Prince Edward, ever the quiet mediator, agreed. "He's done his duty and he's suffered more than most realize," Edward said of Andrew. "Let him rest for everyone's sake," but Charles hesitated. Despite the weight of royal protocol, there was still a brother inside him, one who remembered their childhood games at Balmoral, their mother's laughter echoing through the halls, and the bond they all once shared before the world became complicated. "We've all made mistakes," Charles reportedly told a close aide, "but family is not something you resign from." Still, as king, he knew that compassion had to balance with responsibility. The monarchy's image had been bruised before, and he could not risk another blow. The decision to make the announcement was not about exile or punishment. It was about closure. By addressing the matter publicly, Charles hoped to give his brother space to heal and the institution a moment to breathe. When the statement went out, Charles's phone began buzzing nonstop. Advisors, press secretaries, and even foreign dignitaries reached out to express understanding and support. Yet none of it comforted him. As one palace source described, he sat for a long time in silence, looking at a photo of his mother on the desk. It was as though he was asking her, "Did I do the right thing?" Queen Camilla entered the room quietly, placing a cup of tea beside him. She didn't speak at first. She simply rested a hand on his shoulder. "You did what you had to do," she finally said, "and you did it with kindness." Charles nodded slowly. "But it never feels kind, does it?" he murmured. Later that evening, he made a private call to Prince Andrew. No one knows exactly what was said, but those close to the family describe it as an emotional exchange. There were no titles, one insider shared. "It wasn't Your Majesty and Your Royal Highness. It was just Charles and Andrew, two brothers trying to find peace." The king assured his brother that this wasn't a farewell. "You are still family," he told him. "Always will be." The world may judge, but blood does not break. That night, Charles reportedly walked the palace corridors alone. a habit inherited from his mother whenever she faced difficult choices. The halls were quiet, portraits of ancestors staring down as if to remind him that every monarch faces their own test. His, it seemed, was not just to lead, but to forgive. By dawn, the king had found a rare sense of calm. The storm had passed, but the ache remained. And as he looked out over the London skyline, Charles whispered softly, almost to himself, "Duty asks for strength, but family asks for love." Beyond the grandeur of Buckingham Palace, hidden among the rolling green hills of Windsor Great Park, sits the Duke of York's quiet sanctuary, the Royal Lodge. Once a lively residence filled with guests, laughter, and the rhythm of royal life, it has in recent years transformed into something much quieter, a place of reflection, solitude, and fragile peace. After the palace's official statement, the world's attention turned to Windsor. Yet behind the stone walls and ivy-covered windows, life moved at a much slower, softer pace. Gone were the bustling staff,